What happens when a Chaos Space Marine Iron Warriors warband kills a Farsight commander, rips him out, and shoves a demon inside? Let's find out. All I know is that this will be a cool proxy for a demon prince, with or without wings. First time building a Tau model, it's pretty cool. Might do some more in the future. Starting off, we just build him as the instructions say. Not doing anything too crazy with the legs. I thought about reposing him, but I like how he's kind of perched up on the rock. We'll keep that. I'm going to leave a couple of things off, leave the arms off for now, and kind of put the head on and arms, trying to figure out how exactly we want to pose it. The arms are basically ball joints, so if you cut off the little nubs, you can really pose them anywhere you want. But then I had an idea. What if we didn't put a head where the head goes? Maybe when they put the demon inside, a new head popped out right on his chest. And then where his head should be, a big old gun. The demon prince pretty much has a melee weapon and a ranged weapon. I don't need to get caught up in specifics of what each of them are. Just whatever looks cool. I like using poster tack to kind of hold everything in place to see what the final result's gonna look like. I used some sprue goo to stick the face on the chest, and then securing this gun in the head was kind of annoying. I tried making a tube-like thing out of some bits. That didn't really work, so I ended up just kind of drilling through it and then taking this flexible bit cable and kind of jamming it in there and super gluing and praying that it stood still. Ended up looking pretty good. Found some nice cable pieces to kind of have shooting out of there, like the gun just kind of grew out of his head as the demon took over the armor. And I was using the default Tau sword, whatever, I'm sure it has a name, something with a lot of apostrophes, but I wanted this demon prince sword instead because I thought it would look cooler. And it does, and I was right. Now it wouldn't be Tabletop's Iron Warrior Legion without a little bit of chain. Let's just wrap his whole left arm in the chain, applying some super glue, and just being careful to layer it up. Also, I feel like a demon prince kind of needs a tail. Found this nice mechanical looking tail from some sort of Dark Eldar thing, Kronos, something like that. I don't know if it's a tentacle or a tail, but it looks good on him. Just take a little bit of sprue glue and stick it on his butt. Then I dangle some more chain from his sword, kind of letting it reach down to the ground. Trying to slowly drip super glue on it to hold it into place. Get it nice and rigid so it's not bouncing around. I don't like when there's any movement on a miniature. Ooh, also a couple times off camera, I use this cool flexible wire. It's like guitar string, but way more flexible. I also get these cool flexible cable pieces from the same website, and they're amazing. I stick one here and then have it kind of go around his back. Real easy to work with. I love them. Now I wanted something for his shoulders to try and bulk him up a little bit. Had a couple options, some Ambot pieces, some Mechanicus pieces, but I found these thigh covers from some Skaven Storm Fiends, and I thought they looked really cool and fit perfectly. Let's get those on there. And with that, he's basically done. I just take some earth texture paste and slap it all over the base and the bottom of the chain. He's looking cool. Oh, I did try and do a little bit of battle damage. Dig out some notches, put some holes in him, because he is supposed to be a dead Farsight commander. I guess he should have some damage. I didn't go too crazy. I kind of wish I did more. I need to experiment with actual physical battle damage on models beforehand. Now he's ready for painting. Let's prime the entire model black. Ooh, and you can get a nice little sneak peek at another robot I'm doing for this army. I built him off camera, and I'll be running him as a Hell Brute. I love these 30k models. I start with Vallejo Jet Exhaust, do some dry brushing all over, sticking this in every nook and cranny, and then do some Vallejo Dark Aluminum, doing a little bit less, and then Vallejo Chrome. Really just putting this on the edges, dry brushing, stippling, try and give a little bit of texture. Now I take Black Templar contrast paint and cover up all the cables and wires. Except for the big ones on the chest, I have plans for those later. Now to turn the trim parts that coppery bronzy color. I use Agros Dunes contrast paint to keep it simple. I think I might change up this recipe in future ones. Actually use a more bronze paint. Let me know if you have any good recommendations for bronze. Alright, the big cable going under his shoulders, we're gonna make that kind of hazard stripey with black and yellow. So I use some London gray to base coat it, and then add a bunch of thin layers of white to get it nice and bright. At the same time, we're gonna take his little back fin thing and airbrush this white as well. Then we airbrush on some Imperial Fist contrast paint and brush that onto the yellow cable. Now initially I try taping it, masking it, so I can just airbrush on the black to get the stripes. It's a weird irregular shape. I tried a bunch, didn't work, so we're gonna freehand it. Freehanding multiple stripes around this entire three-dimensional shape, and separately on each fin was very difficult. I'm relatively happy with the end result. We're gonna add some chipping and weathering to it anyway, so it doesn't need to be perfect, but oh man. You know what? Looking at it in the video, it looks nice. I'm quite happy with it. Gotta remember these things are viewed at tabletop distance, even though I zoom in, I crap ton in these videos. Now to mix up the concoction, 50-50 water with rattling grime contrast paint. A nice dark, grayish, brownish, blah blah blah. I slop this all over the model and try and avoid any pooling. I want a bit more contrast since this is like a nice centerpiece model, so we use some black Tamiya panel liner to dip this into some of the recesses and give them a little bit more contrasty oomph. Then we take some dirty down rust and start applying this in bits all over. Thinning it down with a little bit more water gives a bit more of a lighter orangish hue. Still experimenting with it. Since it's water soluble, I can kind of feather it out in some places. I'm still figuring this stuff out. It's tricky. I gotta work with it a lot to kind of get a feel for it. I want a bit more rusty gunkiness, so we use this corrosive texture for Make It Interactive and just kind of slap this all over. It dries a little light, so basically what I was doing was slapping it on and then mixing in some of the dirty down rust effect on it as well. And now for the big show, OSL. We're gonna take some white ink, dip this into the little runes on his sweet demon blade, as well as the vents on his back. Then we airbrush a nice white halo around everything and bring out the fluorescent paints. We're gonna start off with an orange fluorescent ink and slowly airbrush this all over the sword and all over the little engine ports, and then take a fluorescent red and keep this more towards the edges, trying to cool things down the further away they get from the heat source. And then we move on to dry brushing. Gonna mix some dark red and some black and just start lightly dry brushing the edges of the sword and the engine port things, vents, whatchamacallits, doohickeys, things. And then take some dark metallics and dry brush them even a little bit more. Now we get to bust out the liquid pigment enamels. These are fun. I take the light orange and yellow, the liquid pigments, and just kind of dip them into the runes and the engine ports, really sinking them in and removing any excess with some white spirits. Now it's time to get that plasma nice and green. Take some green fluorescent ink and hose it down all over. And now we take the yellow pigments and dip them into the core area where it's gonna be the hottest. For some reason I wasn't liking the effect as much on the green and yellow, so I decided to dip in some white ink and then use some actual yellow fluorescent paint to try and make it even brighter and hotter in there. I think that's a better looking effect. And then after painting the eyes red, I tried to do the thing where you cool off the outer coils using a darker green. I think I went too dark. Really wasn't liking how it looked. Later on I just cover it up again with white and green fluorescent again. Good to experiment though. I wanted some more detail on the red eye, so I tried highlighting using an orange. Didn't really love how it looked. Then I even went back and did some airbrushing on it, just with inks and whites, and I couldn't get the look good, and I wasn't really digging the red. I kind of ended up spilling ink everywhere, and the face just got all weird. So I just said screw it and covered the entire head again with metallic paint, and then used the rattling grime contrast paint just to get it back to a baseline. And I decided that we have enough glowing colors on this model. I want just some black soulless eyes. So I painted them just normal black, and then used a super glossy varnish, just brush this on just to make some nice shiny black soulless eyes. I think this effect came out way cooler. Now it's time for some pigment powders. We use this Mars in a bottle, and in the past I just brush it on dry, but I wanted to experiment again with making a slurry, just to try and get the pigments a little bit more under control. So I mix it up with some water and start slopping it all over the base of the model, and then also put some on the model just to add some rust and dust effects. Using the pigment powders with water works really well on the model. It helps to settle in the recesses and look really cool, but on the base, I don't like it as much. As you can see, compared to the Obliterator from last time, it's just not as bright and vibrant. So we'll just take some dry powder and smush it all over. It's just hard, it goes everywhere, and every time I've tried varnishing pigment powder, it just kills the color. I gotta try some actual pigment powder fixers. I know they have those. Let me know if you have any experience with them. And here we are, the finished Demon Prince with or without wings for my Iron Warriors warband. This guy took forever to do. I've been super busy. It's one of those projects where you just sit down and work on it for a couple minutes at a time. The only difference is I have to turn on a bunch of lights and a camera every time I do it, so it takes a while. But I'm quite happy with him. I could have chaosified him a bit more, but I love the fact that he's got the head on his chest now and the gun's just bursting out of the neck hole. And that sword is awesome. One of my favorite things I've ever painted, and it didn't even take that long. As usual, I love the pigment powder on the leg going into the base, just blends it all together nicely, and I'm getting better at the rust effects. Overall, I think it came out pretty awesome. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know what I should make next for my Iron Warriors. If you have any ideas, hit me up. We'll see you next time. Bye!